Hi, everybody. Welcome to the FSU College of Health and Human Sciences Dietetic Internship Open House. My name is Josh Duke. I'm the communications manager here. I have the pleasure of introducing Lisa Trone, but first I wanted to do just a little bit of housekeeping. For the presentation, we ask that you turn off your microphones and stay muted while Lisa gives her presentation. And if you have any questions that you might want answered for the Q&A section of our presentation, feel free to put them in chat and we'll get to them after the presentation. This session is also going to be recorded, so just wanted to let everyone know. So I think that's just about everything. I'm going to hand it over to Lisa Trone. She's the director of the Dietetic Internship program here, and she'll be doing her thing.
Thank you, Josh. All right, hello everyone out there. So excited to at least be doing something this year. I wish that we could be on site, but maybe in the future we'll go back to some of the older ways of doing things. We'll see. All right, so we're gonna talk a little bit about our program, and then we'll have some Q&As at the end. I also have our wonderful person that handles the graduate program applications. So your applications to the actual master's program, she is online and she'll actually be in a separate breakout room. So for those of you that have questions about like prerequisites or application procedures, anything like that, you're welcome to go into the breakout room in order to ask her questions on that. I also have a couple of current interns here with me. So when we get to the Q&A, if you have like some questions you would like to ask our interns, or just even about kind of what's going on or anything like that, they're also here to take a few questions if you have some. So let's get started. All right, so first of all, requirements to become a registered dietitian. Hopefully everyone is at least somewhat aware of this. So currently you still only require a bachelor's degree. But starting in 2024, you will require a master's degree. So I would say for most of you starting at this point, like if you're graduating this year, you might be able to squeak in under that, but it's going to be pretty close. So, but you'd have to have everything completed. So you would have to have your internship, your coursework, everything you need in order to take the RD exam would have to be completed before January 1st, 2024. So that's the guideline. Even if you're in between. So if you start a program before 2024, if it's not finished, then you will still be required to get a master's degree. And personally, I recommend that you just get a master's degree anyway, because you're going to be competing with everybody else that's going to be required to have a master's degree. All right, but you will have to have at least a bachelor's in order to apply to the DI. You will have to have a DPD verification statement. So, and for some of you, you haven't gotten there yet, and you won't before, you have to apply to the internship program. So we will take, the transcript that you have so far, and usually you can get a letter of intent for the DPD from your DPD director. Okay, so a letter of intent is fine for that at this point. And then you basically, when you come here, you would complete all of the required Ascend competencies through the DI internship. Then you take your exam, pass it, and poof, you're an RD. They're only that easy, right? All right, so for dietetic internships in general, all programs have some specific tracks that they offer, that are just a little bit more of a specialty. Clinical, medical nutrition therapy, anything like that is pretty common. Most places are going to have at least one track on that, which we do. And then they usually have maybe another track that's a little bit more specific to something else. Here at Florida State, our other track is in sports nutrition. But, community nutrition or public health is also a really big avenue. So if that was kind of where you wanted to go, I would probably look for a program that maybe offers the master's in public health, along with, a strong public health type of rotation. But you have to meet the Ascend competencies and professional practice hours. So what that means is there are 41 competencies currently with Ascend. Starting next year, that's actually going up to 50 competencies. So we create objectives based out of those competencies, and throughout the internship, You basically have to do different projects and demonstrate your competency in those specific areas. So all rotations are going to have the three main areas, which are clinical, food service management, and community. So we all have to have those. And then we also offer that specialty on top of that. And I will go into detail on what those are. Okay, so FSU accepts 17 interns each year. So the tracks that we have, so you can either choose a degree in exercise physiology with the master's in sports nutrition, or you can choose the degree in nutrition and food science with the emphasis in clinical nutrition. So, and that kind of determines not only your coursework, but obviously your specialty as well. So the practical experience, it breaks down into the clinical, which we have a preclinical, which is really like a long-term care rotation. Then you have the big inpatient hospital rotation. For food service, we have a few different options. You pretty much have K through 12 nutrition, you have collegiate nutrition, and then you have hospital nutrition. So kind of choose between those. Community-wise, we have a few different options. So our main hospital here in Tallahassee has a community dietitian. So she's actually getting her doctorate in public health right now. We also have on campus our health center. WIC is a mandatory rotation. And then we just have some different ones. And basically when you're admitted into the DI, we sit down and we talk and I kind of get a feel for what it is you would rather do. So obviously your specialty is based on exactly what you want to do. But like even within food service, there's some, various things that you can do. So if you have absolutely no interest in children, you probably want to go to the hospital, or collegiate, or some people, would like a little more experience in, kids or school food service. And so then we'll kind of put you into those types of rotations. The sports rotation is kind of three, I guess really four components to that. So you have professional league, you have collegiate, you also have military. So I put that on here because we're still, when COVID hit, they kind of decided to redo all the contracts. So I'm still waiting for a contract with the military, but that's usually called tactical nutrition. And then you also have what I call contract. So they basically don't do anything like a specific sport. So Exos, the Olympic Training Center, those would be examples of people that just have a wide variety of people that come through. On the clinical side, there's a lot we can do in clinical. So if you're interested in eating disorders, diabetes, pediatrics, geriatrics, dialysis, then that's kind of where we can start to really tailor your specialty experience into what it is that you really want to do for the rest of your life. So not only is that hopefully giving you experience doing what you want to do, but also starting to make the connections, in those specific areas in order to get a job doing what you want to do. Okay, so again, our rotations revolve around the clinical, food service management, community, and then your specialty rotations of either sports nutrition or the advanced clinical nutrition. A little more breakdown. So the clinical one, which is going to be the long-term care rotation, you'll do 10 hours of some pre-rotation objectives, which is just kind of learning about the NFPE and malnutrition and all those things that go into long-term care. And then you will do 80 hours in the long-term care rotation. So I realize not everybody's interested in working with geriatrics, but this is a great way to really get your feet wet before you go to the clinical too. So long-term care is slower paced. The dietitian has a little more time to work with you. So you might have to do like 2 to 5 assessments a day. But it's a good way to start talking to patients, getting those things done. Because when you get to the clinical too, you're going to be expected to do more like 10 to 15 assessments a day. So that's a big jump up if you started at 0. But that's your clinical two. That's going to be your main inpatient hospital rotation. So here at Florida State, we have advanced MNT, medical nutrition therapy 1 and 2. So you will take both of those classes before you do your hospital rotation. So that's a great prep, at least to refresh all of your undergraduate knowledge. We also go into a little bit more practical settings as far as you will practice interviewing, doing the NFPE, educating, all of those things as well. And then the food service management. So this has changed a whole lot since I started at school. I believe I had to do 8 weeks of food service management, and that went through kind of that whole undergraduate component of you had to work through different stations in the kitchen, things like that. And so they really narrowed it down so that it's really just the management part of that. So hopefully in undergrad, you're getting experience as to what you actually do in a kitchen. But as a dietitian, you're not going to typically be the person that is, doing the dishes, cooking the food, those types of functions. You're going to be the one that would be developing the menus, maybe doing some scheduling, ordering food, but it would be all management type functions. So again, you have options of K through 12, collegiate versus hospital rotations, and that's just a 3-week rotation. Community is actually divided in 3 different ways, but one is WIC, which is women, infants, and children. So that's kind of your primary exposure to pregnancy, lactation, all of those. It's just a 1-week rotation, but it just gets you exposed to what WIC is, what they have, who you should be referring them to, all of that. And then you'll have a community rotation. So for our sports track, that is actually going to be at the International Vitamin Corporation. So you will actually develop your own supplement, basically, working with the people that work there. Actually, the dietitian that's over that is a FSU sports nutrition grad. So, he was just kind of wanted something a little different than the traditional job, if you will. So he works with you and you get to develop your own supplement, the bottle, the marketing, everything, which has been a really great rotation. In addition to that, we just added a new core class for the sports nutrition, which is supplements in exercise. So all of that kind of pairs together nicely. For the clinical side, there's a few more options. So it just kind of depends, clinically what you're interested in. Are there specific areas that you're, like low income versus children versus, those kinds of things that we can kind of look at different community rotations on that side. All right, then comes your specialty rotation. So it seems that most people really want to put most of their time into the specialty rotation since that's really what you want to do for a living. So, my philosophy is that I'm training you to be a dietitian. So I'm not really training you to be a sports dietitian or eating disorders or a pediatric dietitian. You're a dietitian first. And that's what I'm graduating is somebody that can, that has the knowledge, is going to pass the RD exam and can get a job doing anything that a dietitian can do. I realize you might want to specialize after that, and that's fine. And we're definitely giving you lots of education experience in all of your special interests. But it's just kind of in addition to it. But I'm adding 80 hours of community into these specialty rotations. So technically you'll have 400 hours to kind of play with, if you will. But there's a lot of the community objectives that fit really nicely into your specialty. And so to be able to do presentations and cooking demos and things like that, specifically to the areas that you're most interested in. So, like if pediatrics was your area, then you would be able to do those types of competencies specifically aimed at pediatrics or specifically aimed at, athletes, things like that. So just give you a little bit more of that specialization. Okay, so for the program here, you need to apply to the master's program by December 15th of this year if you're planning to start fall of next year. So if you are a little further out, then just remember you would apply to the master's program the year before you're going to actually start the program. So people always ask me, when should I start, looking at all of this? Like now is definitely happening well in advance of you actually starting the program. Okay, so remember December 15th, you got to have everything in for the master's program. And once you're admitted to the master's program, then you can apply to the DI program. And that program actually, it opens December 1st for applications and it closes February 1st. So you have to have everything in for the DI program by February 1st. All right, so you have to be admitted into the master's program first. And again, I already talked about our 2 tracks that we have for that. And so for your application to the master's program, again, due date December 15th. You have to have a GPA greater than 3. GRE scores are waived through fall 2022. So if you're applying for this next round, we do not require the GREs. They are going to come back in 2023, however, but if you're going to apply through fall of 2022, they're waived. You will have to submit a statement of purpose, a resume, 2 recommendation letters, and I have the website that takes you to our main college page. Okay, so for the DI, again, same tracks, but the due date is going to be February 1st. You have to be admitted into the MS program first. So you still have to have a GPA greater than 3. And then you have the personal statement, the resume, and the 2 recommendation letters as well. And I also put the website specifically for the DI internship that you can, if you haven't looked on there already, there's lots of information about the program. There's a link to the DI, prospective DI students, and there's also a link for ISTP program, which I'll explain next. Okay, so actually I'm going to jump ahead one and then come back to that. Okay, this is one of the great things about Florida State that I love. So obviously I wish that I could give everybody a spot in the internship, but unfortunately there has to be a point, since we can only accept 17. And the reason why we only accept so many is because I have to be able to place you. So if I accept 30 people and I don't have anywhere to put you, then that really didn't help you either. Okay. So here we are right here. So you're going to apply and get admitted into the MS program, and then you're going to apply to the DI program. So if all goes well, you're admitted to both, right? So now you're accepted into the DI program, and you will start the MSDI fall of that year, which will be next year. Now, if you don't get accepted, you can still start the master's program. Okay, the first 2 semesters of our program are classes only. So it's exactly the same whether you get in or not. And then you can reapply to the DI program next year. And then if you are still not accepted, then we have the ISPP. So you actually have 3 ways to get your internship completed here at Florida State. All right, now what the ISPP is, so there's 2 options to be able to apply to an ISPP. You can apply only if you are not matched to an internship. So whether you're applying to just Florida State, whether you're applying to multiple places, if you don't get accepted, again, if you're going to start the master's program, I would still apply again next year. But usually I tell people if they're applying the second time, just apply to Florida State. That way, if you're not accepted, then you have that no match form, and then you're eligible for the ISPP. If you get accepted to even one program, even if it's not a program that you want to go to, then you're kind of out for the ISPP. The other route with the ISPP is that if you have a doctoral degree, a nutrition-related doctoral degree, without the DPD requirements. So that's kind of the only way you can get around not having those DPD requirements. So technically, the intern is going to find their own rotations through this route. It's basically like a distance program. So you can completely do your rotations anywhere you want. So, if you're done with your master's degree, you can move back home. You can move to wherever you want to move to and do all your rotations there. You can do rotations here in Tallahassee. Anyway, so it's not like you're going to be 100% on your own. I'm still going to make sure that you get rotations because we still have to have a contract with wherever you go. So it kind of makes it easier for me if you go somewhere that we already have a contract. So I'm going to kind of help you with all of that as far as the contact I have. Plus, I don't want you necessarily competing with the DI. We all kind of need to work together so that everybody gets a place. The other difference with this program is you're still underneath the FSU umbrella, but you're not considered a student of Florida State. So with the DI program, you being a student of Florida State, it is actually considered a class. And so you can use financial aid for that, all those types of things. In this route, you would not be able to use financial aid. You just pay a flat fee. We have a rolling admission for this. So, a lot of times right after, match day, that's a big time for people to be like, okay, I need to do something different. We actually accept people like all year round. I can accept up to 7 people every year into this ISPP program. All right, so I'm just going to mention Diecast. However, Florida State does not use Diecast. Okay, so if you're only applying to Florida State, you do not need to get an account to Diecast. If you're applying to other programs, you need to find out if they use Diecast, and if not, how you apply to them, right? So for Florida State, you only apply on our FSU website to apply, okay? You don't need to turn in any application stuff to Diecast for Florida State. However, you do have to apply to DND Digital. So you just have to get an account on DND Digital. So Diecast is basically a universal application service. So if you have multiple programs that are using Diecast, the nice thing is you just put your application stuff on there once, and then all the programs you've applied to, they get to see your information and you're good to go. But DND Digital, that is the ranking service. So you have to have, and no matter where you apply, you have to have a DND Digital account, because if you are not in that system, then you will not show up for the programs to rank you. So basically, once you've applied to all your programs, then you go to DND Digital and you're going to rank the programs in the order you most want to go to. So say Florida State's your #1 choice, you rank Florida State first. University of Florida clearly is second. But you rank them in whatever order you want, all right? And then each program is also ranking the students that apply. So for all the people that apply to Florida State, we're going through and ranking everybody from 1 to the bottom. And then we all submit that into DND Digital, and that's how they do their little computer magic and match you to the program. All right, so a little bit more on Florida State. So hopefully, if you're here, you have some interest in Florida State. Hopefully you've done a little bit of research as well. I just kind of want to pass on some of the good things about Florida State. So we have extremely high pass rates. We always have. I think part of that is because we have the master's program that is mixed in with the internship. So you're getting a lot of information from that. Just to give you an idea, so this is for 2020. There were 3,673 students that took the RD exam in 2020, and 68% passed the first time. For FSU, we had 17 people that took the RD exam, and 88% passed the first time, which my goal is to get that above 90, but I think we're sitting pretty good with 88%. And then also within the first year. So these are kind of the two statistics that we keep. So within the first year, meaning that you can take it and fail, take again and pass, and you're still considered a passing grade. So as long as you pass within the first year, that's considered a pass. And so definitely that rate goes up. So that goes up to there. This is kind of, I think, a little misleading, because it's just a low number, but we only had one person that did not pass within the first year. Anyway, it's still 92%. So usually we're a little bit higher in the 90s for a pass rate in the first year. And then our ISTP, so we're just kind of starting to grow that. Since I took over, that's kind of been one of my main functions, is to really help, spread the word about the ISTP, that it is an option, and it's just another way that you can get your rotations done if you don't get into a DI. But the pass rate is typically significantly lower. So again, a little misleading because we only had 1 out of 2 people, but that was still higher than the national average, apparently. So I kind of gave you a little bit, just to kind of give you a wider range, like a 3-year average from 2018 to 2020. We had a 96% rate pass in the first year. And then ISTP, we had 4 out of 5 people. So we had an 80% pass rate. Okay, so, and really lastly, how do you improve your matchability? And I want to say that this is going to be universal, but I'm obviously speaking specifically for Florida State because that's how I feel. So get in touch with me. If you have not actually spoken to me at some point, I know I see a lot of familiar names. I've spoken with you at different, conferences or, other things where they had internship directors presenting, and that's great. If I have not actually spoken to you one-on-one, please get in touch with me. I mean, this is the best way for me to get to know you, as well as you to kind of see if this is really a place that you want to go. But if I just have a name on a paper, it's hard for me to know what to think of you, because I've got all these people from Florida State applying that I know. So the best way for you guys to kind of break that cycle, if you will, is to get to know the program. Let me put a face to a name, and really understand who you are so that I know who I'm evaluating when we're starting to look at your applications. If you could visit the school, that's great, but I understand not everybody can. I will tell you, if you're not from Florida, we are a pretty open state, so you're more than welcome to come and visit, and you can choose to wear a mask, up to you. But definitely just to see the school is always kind of nice. Florida State is an absolutely beautiful campus. And, we can help you meet anybody else that you want to meet also. So if you're on the sports side, a lot of times I take people out to the stadium so they can meet the sports dietitians out there. If you're interested in research, we can definitely get you connected to, who you're interested in, maybe working with potentially, something like that. Anyway, so there's possibilities, and we can always schedule that anytime. So if there's just a weekend that you are going to be able to come out, get a hold of me, and we'll kind of try to put it together. As far as your resume goes, experience. So it doesn't mean you have to have had a job in, specific areas of nutrition, but you should be doing some type of observation, volunteering. If you're on the sports side, you probably are volunteering at your schools, whatever they have there. If they don't have, even if they don't have a dietitian there, they probably have some type of fuel bar or something like that you could be maybe getting some experience on the sports side. If you do not have any idea how to get some sports experience, like maybe you're at a small college that doesn't have a real sports program, something like that, just contact me and I'm happy to give you some ideas of where you can go to get that. But I'm also looking for well-rounded. So if you're on the sports side, I'm not just looking for somebody that has done nothing but sports. Like, I need to see that you're a dietitian. So if you've got all this sports experience and nothing else, my recommendation is at this point, go out and get into the community. Community experience is super easy. So there's all kinds of food banks. And again, there doesn't have to be an RD there. You can just get different experiences out in the community. You can volunteer in different kitchens. You can also help with research, like wherever you're at, participating as a research participant or helping professors, with their research in the labs, things like that. I consider all that experience being a part of your organization. So like if you have a student dietetic association or wherever you are, like the local or the state or the national academy, all of those are different types of experiences. Any certifications you have. So if you have like Serve Safe or Save Staff, I count that towards food service, any of those types of things. So I try to give you credit for anything that you've possibly done. So my recommendation is put everything on your resume. Okay, so forget the one page, all right? Put it all on there. And so that I can specifically see all the things that you've done, so don't just say I worked at the fuel bar. Okay, I have a pretty good idea what that means, but that's what it means here. So what does it mean to you? Or, you went to a food bank, just maybe list out a couple things that you actually did. Treat it like an actual job experience. Your GPA. So definitely GPA is important, but I think it's more important that you're just over the 3.0. So if you have a 3.1, is that going to decrease the possibility of you getting admitted? Not necessarily. So I usually start out with a point system, just to kind of get people in some sort of rank, so that then we can start to talk about them. So the GPA is worth 5 points out of 40. So it's not the most important thing, but it could be the difference between, if you have a 3.1, you get 1 point. If you have a 3.9, you get 5 points. So there's 4 points right there. And I will tell you that between, I would say, at least the number 5 spot to the number 20 spot in our rankings is usually only separated by about 5 points. So it's tight. So GPA can make a big difference, but it's definitely not going to determine whether or not you get in or not. So if you have a great GPA, that's awesome, and it will benefit you. Okay. I am not going to do the GRE, and I'm not going to bring it back to the program either. So FSU will be bringing back the GRE in 2023, but I will not. I don't think that's a great indicator of your future as a dietitian. Recommendation letters, you'll need 2. So I recommend you get those letters from people that you know. So not just a teacher that you sat in class and that's going to write you a cookie cutter letter. I need to see who you are. So you need to pick a couple people, preferably somebody academically, at least, that can kind of speak to your work ethic and all those types of things. But I also really like to see one from outside of the school. So either a job that you've held, or maybe you've done a lot of volunteering for a particular organization, or those are also great. I like to see those as well. But make sure you talk to those people and ask, maybe even give them some ideas of what you want included into your recommendation letter. I don't know, that may offend a couple of people, but I think for the most part, at least I know I am grateful when people tell me things that they would like to be included. I can write my own way or choose not to include them, but it's nice to, especially if it's not in their area. So like if it's your supervisor at work, they probably have no idea what to put in a recommendation letter. So give them a little help, so that you might be the best employee ever, but they just don't know how to write a decent recommendation letter. And then your personal statement, I want to know why you want to be a dietitian. Everybody has a story, and I really like to read that. And then I also want to know why you want to come to Florida State and why should Florida State accept you. So that's the time for you to brag. It's kind of like a cover letter. So I really want to kind of see that correlation between what do you want from Florida State. So again, I don't want something that you could just generally send anywhere. I want you to write this to Florida State. All right. So do not use the same thing that you use for the master's program. So if you have somebody write your recommendation or your personal statement is to the master's program, I suggest you rewrite it so that it is very specific to the internship. Because I guarantee that I will read every single one of these. I will read every recommendation letter, every personal statement. I will read every resume. So you can bank on that. Okay. So here's my info. So feel free to, email me if you want to connect a little more, set up a Zoom meeting or just talk. I absolutely love talking to you guys and helping you, even if FSU is not the place for you. I would rather help you decide that now than, you get here and you're like, this is really not what I want. So, so there's my info for that. And I don't know, Mary Sue, did you want to just say a few things first?
I would love just to say a couple things. Just to reiterate, Lisa, that the master's program is one application and the dietetic internship is another application. Lisa handles the dietetic internship application. So if you have dietetic internship applications, contact her. If you have master's application questions, contact me. That's my main thing that I want to tell you. The other thing is she spoke about the personal statement. We want a statement of purpose, master's program. Yes, you're applying for the dietetic internship and that should be included, but we want to know for your personal statement, for your statement of purpose, we want to know why you think you're qualified to Florida State. We don't need your full history of when you were a little girl and how you first got started. We want something synced, one page, make it short, make it sweet, and to the point. Letters of recommendation. Once again, that differs from the master's application to the dietetic internship application. We're looking for academic, and we're looking at recommenders such as faculty members that can talk to your qualifications for being successful at the master's program. Or if you did an internship someplace and your internship director or whoever was your supervisor where you were interning is a lovely letter of recommendation because they can tell us how you did in your internship. When you ask a recommender to write you a letter of recommendation that is an internship, please make sure they indicate it was internship and not volunteer hours. Volunteer hours are considered a personal recommender and it doesn't count towards the 2 that are required for your application. Josh has uploaded steps and tips for applying to the master's program. Use it as your guideline. I'm here to answer any questions that you have, and I love answering questions for you. So there's no stupid questions, even outside of the application. That's what I'm here for. I'm here to help.
All right, so we're gonna kind of move into questions. And I wanna ask you guys if you have any questions for my interns that are sitting here, if we could do those first, if anybody has one for them, because they're gonna have to leave in about like 10 minutes.
Are we just putting them in the chat, or do you want us to like?
You can do either. Either.
Okay. Okay. So hello, everyone. I am Janesha Phillips. My question for the current interns is, what is something that you wish you could have told someone who was applying to the program? And also, what has been your experience in the program so far?
Do you want to go first, or do you want me to go first?
You go first. I'm muted, so.
Okay, so my name is Sarah and this is Lauren. We're current interns and this is our first semester in the master's program. We haven't started the internship yet. It doesn't start till next summer. So we're just strictly academics as of right now. We both went to FSU for our undergraduate, and I personally got a degree in food and nutrition science as well as dietetics. And so I did my dietetics degree in 1 year because I kind of just changed my program last minute. And so I really had to get all of my experience in within that year. And so I took all the opportunities that I was given to get as much experience as I could, because as Dr. Trone emphasized, she really wants to see experience in her interns. And so I think that's a big focus of applying to the internship. Do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, no, just like what she said with community hours, just getting those in. I wish someone kind of emphasized that, because it was kind of like a last second thing for me as well. And also just to get to know Dr. Trone too. Like, luckily we were privileged in the sense that we had her as our teacher. So we could always just kind of ask her questions in class, which was something I was super grateful for. But honestly, she's a wonderful person to talk to. So just shoot her an email and I'm sure that'll just clear up any questions you have and just makes you feel a lot better.
Thank you. And also, I'm not sure if you guys were there the same time, but I also know Kate Herman. She graduated from Florida State, and I currently work with her at Auburn, if you guys knew her while she was there.
Does anyone else have any questions for us?
I have a question. My name is Dwayne Gray. I was curious, can you kind of walk me through a typical day of how you go through classes?
Yeah, so as of right now, we are both in the clinical route, so we didn't go into sports. So it's us two and then 3 others that are in the clinical, because sports is bigger at this school at Florida State. So for us right now, we're taking 3 classes and we're doing a directed individual study with Dr. Trone. And so a majority of the classes are in the afternoon as opposed to in the morning. And
It's every day.
yeah, it's every day for us so far.
But it's very evenly balanced. So it's definitely doable. And it's definitely hard, but it's not, it's doable.
And we both work jobs on top of it right now.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Hannah. I have a question for you guys. Just on like more of a research component, do you know of anyone in the program who's interested in getting into research or who does that while completing the master's degree?
Yeah, so I actually, I'm meeting next week to do, or to help out with the research study right now. I had no experience in undergrad for research at all. And you have to take a research class in your first year for the, for grad school. And but luckily a lot of people come and talk to you. So if you're like, oh, wow, that sounds really interesting, you can actually just go straight up and talk to that professor and just ask how you can get involved. I mean, I literally just emailed someone and they're like, oh yeah, you can come next week. So just to kind of get your feet wet. And then I think the more you meet people, the more you'll be able to figure out what you want to do and what you can do with them.
Yeah, there's a lot of opportunities to either be a participant in a study as well as helping with studies. And so one of the classes that we're taking, as Lauren said, is a research class where every week a research professor comes in and basically explains their research and allows for you to ask any questions that you have. And then a lot of researchers here are more than happy to take students in to help. And so there's a lot of opportunity for that here at Florida State.
Awesome. Thank you.
I'd like to step in and add to that, Hannah. If you decide that you would like to be a thesis student, all of master's students are admitted as non-thesis, which is coursework only. But if you'd like to complete a thesis research after your first semester, if you're in academic good standing, through this office, and you find a faculty member that you'd like to work with, internally, you can request with your faculty member to be switched to a thesis track and do a research project with a specific faculty member. And I'd be happy to give you more specifics on that if you're admitted and that's the route that you would like to go. We do have Dr. Berryman is one of our faculty members that's also an RD. Dr. Arjmandi is also an RD. So those are good people to talk to and decide if you'd like to do a thesis, a research project and be a thesis student after you get here.
That's really good to know. Thank you.
Does anyone else have any other questions for us?
I have a question. Hi, my name is Maddie. Are there any internships that or rotations that you guys are looking forward to, or any that you have kind of chosen that's different than what other people have done?
I'm interested in diabetes, so I'm excited for the Metabolic Center, just to work with pediatric kids with diabetes and kind of getting my feet wet with that.
I'm also specializing in diabetes at the Metabolic Center as well. And then I'm interested in pediatrics, which it's kind of nice in the clinical route. You get to have that specialty as opposed to sports where it's just sports. So I feel like you get more of a well-rounded experience and you get to go into what you're interested in, which for us is just more of the clinical side.
Thank you.
Make sure you're on mute. Hey, Maddie, I was just gonna add to that. We also have people doing specialties just in ICU. Again, this is a little bit more on the clinical side, but eating disorders. We also have just full pediatric rotations. We send a lot of people down to Orlando to Winnie and Arnold Palmer is a big facility for pediatrics. So pretty much anything can kind of fall underneath the clinical side. So if you're on that route, then we can pretty much get you somewhere that will have something for you. I mean, we've gotten even as specific as what was it? Pulmonary pediatric. Yeah, it was a pulmonary pediatric dietitian. So you know that's what they were interested in, and so we sent them there. So sometimes it can get even more specific than even just pediatrics. You know, it might be pediatric diabetes. You know, things like that.
Awesome. So if you did not choose the clinical track, you're on sports. Do you get to kind of still customize that clinical rotation a little bit, or is it a set? Yeah. Yeah.
You don't get to pick multiple places. So, because most sports rotations want you there. Typically, I mean, the bare minimum I've ever seen is 4 weeks. But you know, you're just getting to know the athletes, and it's a little different than clinical because you've got to get buy-in from your athletes. So being there a little longer is more beneficial to seeing more things. Because you could go to another facility, but they're going to be doing the same thing. It's still a sports rotation. So we just kind of focus in on what you most likely want to do, or maybe where you want other experience. So a lot of people coming in, have volunteered with their collegiate team, so maybe they want to experience something different. Maybe they want to go to a pro team, or they're interested in like the Olympic Training Center, or, something more elite, like Olympic type sports. And then that's where we put you. It also depends on your finances. Can you, fortunately, we're not going to pay for you to go to.
You got muted, just so you know.
Was I muted that whole time?
No, it just cut off at finances.
That's sketchy. Sketchy, Josh. All right. So where did I leave off? I'm sorry.
At finances. So like if you can afford to kind of go to these places.
Yeah. So that's the first thing we're going to talk about. You might be interested in professional sports, but where can you afford to stay? Like, do you have family, friends somewhere, that you could stay with, so you're not paying, money for that? Or, there are some, like we go to the Cleveland Indians, and it also kind of varies in spring. So spring training is usually in a different location than their actual, in season. And so we just found out Cleveland Indians, their preseason is in Arizona, and they actually own a apartment complex. And so they're actually willing to give our intern like an actual room in the apartment complex for free, which is awesome. So there's just different things like that, but we definitely need to look, I'm not trying to break your bank or anything. I'm always thinking about finances when it comes to that stuff. But there definitely is probably a little bit more involved with sports, because we just don't have any professional sports. Or we've got FSU, which you're always welcome to do that as your rotation also. But you can always volunteer there as well. So
I just have one more question, if that's okay. I don't want to take up somebody else's space, but if you have if I have a connection somewhere else, what is the deadline for me to tell you their information so that maybe you can make a contract with them?
Just as soon as if you know that's where you want to go and you have that contact, usually the way it's set up. So as a DI director, it is my job to schedule all these things. Like, that's my job. So, but if you have the connection, I think it's better if you approach them. Like, if you actually know them, ask them if they're willing to take you on as an intern, and then I can take it from there. I think it works better that way if you're a personal, they know who you are, versus just, me contacting them and saying, hey, I've got an intern that wants to come there, So, but yeah, if you've got the contact, then I get in touch with them, get a contract, and you're good to go.
Thank you.
But the sooner the better, to answer your question. Sometimes contracts can take, especially at the professional level, these contracts can take, because it's not like you're just negotiating with the dietitian. It's general management. It's an ordeal. Any other questions? Let's see.
My second question is for you, Dr. Trone, specifically, what or who more so was a student that you felt like was one of the best students to come through the program, and what was some of the qualities that they possessed that you feel like made them the best student that came through your program?
You with the in-depth question. Okay. I've never been asked anything like that. That's a great question. So I would say the best students, and the more I do this, the more I kind of start to identify what I'm looking for before they're admitted, because those are the qualities that I'm going to want. And kind of what I was saying, like with the GPA, like I know before I took over, GPA was like almost the centerpiece of everything, for admission. And to me, that just doesn't tell me, I've had 4.0 students that come in and they were not the best people person, so dietetics is very people friendly. You've got to be able to communicate, and get people to do things that you need them to do, things like that. So I'm definitely the knowledge component is important. So when you come in with just strong knowledge background, like you had a really good undergraduate program, that definitely helps. But I'm honestly looking for people that have good organization, so, when it's the day that you have to submit everything and you're still struggling to get your stuff in and you're calling me and you're like, I haven't done it, you're freaking out, like, it's not the best sign because I don't want to be dealing with that all through the internship, when you're not getting your information in to get onboarded, to different places, things like that. So, so there's one. So I'm definitely looking for a particular level of organization and just commitment to the profession. So, and that's why I can't emphasize well-rounded enough. I have nothing but respect if you want to go into sports or a specific clinical or whatever, but I need you to be an RD first, because if you only want to do this little bitty thing right over here versus dietetics is like this, and you're not keeping an open mind, you're just not going to have very good rotations. Every rotation is going to be something you don't want to do, and you're not going to get the most out of it, even if it's something that you could potentially use in what you want to. I mean, if you're aware of this, but there's a whole lot of food service and sports nutrition. So, the more you get out of food service, the better you're going to be at a sports diet as a sports dietitian. So they're all linked together in, wonderful ways. So, the more you get out of those rotations, the more you're just going to be successful in life. So I'm kind of looking for that kind of personality where you're open-minded. You're definitely leaning towards being a sports dietitian, all that, or clinical, but, you're willing to experience whatever's out there. You may change your mind, the more things you experience, or maybe even get more detailed, something like that. So I think those are the best traits for people that are very successful in not just the program, but in general. If you can kind of go with the flow, I think most of us in this profession are a little bit on that left brain side. We're a little bit OCD, a little bit on the perfectionist side. It just kind of tends to be a general trait for us. And if you're not, that's actually a good thing. A lot of stress involved with being a perfectionist. But, I think learning to be adaptable, especially in the last couple of years with COVID, luckily the interns that I've had have been able to roll with it, when like all of a sudden you're like every rotation literally just stopped, so, the people that struggled, I think, are the ones that were just absolutely freaking out, so you just kind of have to know that things are going to work out. I can promise that. So even if I have to precept you myself, we'll get through it, but I think those are the biggest things that I'm looking for. It's not your GPA. It's really, honestly, your personality is what I'm looking for, because I've been a dietitian long enough to know, and I've worked in enough fields, different areas of dietetics, that you just got to be able to roll with it, but you've got to be organized. You got to be able to document well. And I guess that's that particular character trait that I'm looking for.
Thank you.
Lisa, we had a question in the chat. Someone was interested in sports nutrition. They were wondering, for the internship, is it mandatory to do also the clinical, or could it be sports nutrition only?
So you definitely have to do clinical. So everyone has to do the clinical, the community, and the food service management. No matter what program you're going to go to, those are the three components of dietetics. Now, as far as how much time you spend in each one of those, that can vary per program. All right. So, but for our specialty, maybe that's what you meant anyway, as far as in the specialty, it would only be sports nutrition. Is that more what you meant? Or were you asking if you could just completely skip clinical altogether? Anyway, we can't skip clinical altogether. That's a huge component. Not to mention it comprises the majority of the RD exam. So I definitely need you to have that so you can pass that exam. But when you get to the sports nutrition specialty, it would be included in that.
Great. I think we have time for one more question, if anyone has anything else they'd like to ask.
I'll ask
Okay.
one.
Oh, go ahead.
So when you're reading all of these personal statements, what are some things that, and can you give us some tips on what's going to set us apart or at least keep your interest as you're reading it?
So, I mentioned kind of the three things that I'm looking for. When it comes to your personal statement and your recommendation letters, that is actually open to the entire committee. So although I kind of have the final say of everything, I don't want it to just be my opinion, because you might write things that are personally interesting to me, or maybe things that like I don't know anything about or that I'm not as interested in, and that should not bias your application, right? So we have a committee, there's 4 of us that are dietitians, and we read all of them. We kind of give it a score. It's broken down into, so like even your personal statement, one thing we're looking for is your writing ability. So make sure that you're, at least double checking that, have other people read it, all those kinds of things. I had one application this past year where they misspelled seminal. So that was kind of a big word to, so don't make those critical errors, that kind of stuff. Do I know if a comma is necessarily in the right place or it should be a semicolon? I don't know. I'm not an English major, okay, but I can definitely read, and we can tell whether or not you can speak proper English and write an essay, right? So, and then I want you to kind of tell a story. I mean, it should flow. I mean, there's been times I've read 2-page papers where I felt like I just read 20 pages, because it was just so dry and there's no flow. And then there's other ones I've read that were 3 or 4 pages, and like I could have read it again, like it was that good, so it needs to be interesting, but keep it relevant to what you're talking about, so I'll give you another example. So I had somebody, he was in the service, which is awesome. That's a huge plus, right? But his personal statement was all about being in the service. Like it had nothing to do with applying to the dietetics program. And so it was kind of like, I'm not quite sure what the point of your statement is here, so, stay on point. So tell me why you wanted to be a dietitian, what got you into the world of nutrition, and then talk about Florida State, why you want to come here, and what's so great about Florida State that you're even online right now, right? What makes you want to come here? And then kind of brag on yourself as to why I should take you, what separates you from everyone else, right? And do all that in 2 pages or less. So be concise. Like if you give me 10 pages, I'm going to read 10 pages, but I don't want to read 10 pages. So 2 pages is probably enough. Plus, if you're going to 10 pages, you're probably talking about a whole lot of stuff that I don't necessarily need to know.
Gotcha. Thank you very much. I'll keep it short.
Any other questions?
This is my last question, but I was having trouble, and this also can go to Ms. McElmore, but having trouble finding like a mission statement for the college specifically, or something like a vision or anything to that nature for Florida State.
So I can't, if you go to, I think Josh posted it up here somewhere.
You're looking for the Dietetics Internship?
Yeah, yeah. If you scroll back up.
I'll post it again in chat for everyone.
If you go to that, it will literally have that on that page. So it has the mission statement for the internship as well as the mission statement for Florida State.
Thank you.
And I posted some other helpful links and email addresses for everyone. You can also find all that information on the website. But yeah, I think that's all the time we had today. If there's any last minute questions, feel free to stick around afterwards or send us an email or a private message. Thank you so much, Lisa, for the presentation. Thank you, Mary Sue, for helping out. And we look forward to hearing back from all of you and hopefully seeing some of you around campus. So have a great rest of your day.
Looking forward to your applications. Take care.
Thank you.
Everyone.